I'm CK. Tonight we've got another module from Frequency Central. It's their high towers. It is a clock divider. Send a clock in and it can do divide it into subclocks and send it out to, I think, 4 ports and some other manipulation kind of things to do with that. So it's all about clock tonight. Hope you enjoy the video. Here's the box from Frequency Central out of Coventry. Picked it up from thonk.co.uk, as I do many of my eurorack modules. Let's see what we got. We got some paper packaging, which is good, because it's recyclable, of course. Another sticker. I got way too many Frequency Central stickers. Some pin headers. Power cable. Let's get the box ready for recycling. Get the moth off my soldering pad. And let's take a look here at the front panel. Again, this is 4 clock dividers with lots of different ways to manipulate them. So that'll be kind of fun. Let's look at the front panel first. Got their presets that you can use, modes. That's the clock in. That'll be the master that is talking to all the other dividers work from. That the dividers work from. So it's got an LED next to it. Looks like a reset. Probably just send a high signal to reset it. It's probably an LED too. This is cues and gates. I assume that's going to be a switch. Oh wait, that may be, I may be wrong. That may be a, well, I don't know what that is. We'll find out, because there's the clock input. I was wrong. There's the reset input. So maybe these are, I don't know, are these taps? We're going to look. No, that's a jack. Oh no, that, I was right. These are tap buttons. That's interesting. And then we've got CV in, out for A, out for B, out for C, out for D, and then just CV to set various things. So it looks like a pretty straightforward front panel to control everything. Now let's look at the circuit boards. And this one, PCB, is by Johnson Dunn, which is the last number of Frequency Centrals I've gotten from him. Jet Holt and Rick Holt designed it. All the holes are through-hole plated, as we would expect. It does have a quotation on it. A new day will come, and when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. I will have to look that up. I do not know what that's from. All the components have their values listed. Op amp here, op amp there, and then a Jetroid tool pick. That's the microcontroller with the code by Jetroid in it. Here's where the power connector goes. On the front, we've got these two, the clock and the reset buttons, because I thought this needed an external clock, but it certainly looks like it may allow a tap to set clock. I do not know that for sure, so we'll figure that out. And then we've got all the pots are 100K, which is good because then we won't get them wrong. 2 big LEDs, an LED for each clock divider output, and all the jacks. And that's that for the PCBs. Looks good, looks pretty straightforward. Doesn't look like there's anything complicated to solder or things too close to each other. Frequency Central makes their boards are pretty wide open. They don't try and cram too much stuff in. Let's see what's in this bag. Got a whole bunch of transistors, electrolytic caps, bunch of resistors with their values written on the paper tape, which is thoughtful of the Frequency Central folks. Bunch of diodes. Here's, oh, this is the tool 1.1. I just looked on their site, and they're up to tool 2.0. So this is one rev behind, and they had to change for a couple of reasons, some code reasons, and also one of the parts went end of life. So I'm not going to try and get the 2.0 version, because I think this will be fine for me. And it'll be simple. I mean, it'll be pretty much the same. I mean, the 2.0 has code revisions and so on, but I don't think overall it'll be dramatically different, because it is a clock divider in the end. The 2 op amps, foil cap, and a power regulator, I believe. And is this another op amp? Yes. Are there 3 op amps on here? Or just 2? Am I counting wrong? So there's one 072 op amp, and the 8084 op amp, but where is the other 702 go? Did they give me an extra 702? Well, sometimes Frequency Central misses parts, and sometimes they give you extras. So yeah, it looks like I have 1, 2 702s, and I only need 1. So that goes in my spare chip box. Huh. It cost money, though. And again, I'm just double checking here. But no, there's no place for another 702. Oh well. I'm happy with that. Now we'll get this will be the mechanical bits bin. My light is acting up. Let's see what we got here. Knobs, they're have brass set screws, but there's no metal insert, so you got to be very careful not to strip the set screw, the plastic, when you're tightening up the set screws, so be careful. So here's the tap button. Oh no, I don't think that's tap, because that's very stiff. That's not a bounce back. It's a solid click. So which is harder to tap tempo on. So I'll figure that out later. All the panel nuts are on all the parts, so I'll take those off camera, because that's not very interesting. The keyed power connector. So that's the bits and pieces. And I'll get the soldering iron heated up and get these panel nuts off the jacks and pots, just so they're out of the way, and we'll get this thing going. It's got the build guide up. It's a okay build guide. Some pictures, not enough, but some, so that's okay. So we're going to do what we typically do. We're going to start with the resistors. And let me grab the most. We'll grab the 10Ks. And put all the 10Ks on, and I'm going to do both boards at once. Some people, and the build guide describes doing them one at a time, but I like to get them both done at the same time, because then I don't have half resistors lying around all over the place. One thing, there was nothing particularly out of the ordinary in the build guide, so we'll just go ahead and put them together. Let's put one on first. So we will go and solder one resistor, and as is typical, the board solders very, very well. Again, Frequency Central makes good quality. So that's one done live. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the resistors, and I'm going to turn off the sound commentary, and I will play the video back in fast motion so you can watch all the resistors just kind of fly onto the board. Enjoy resistor time. And there's all the resistors, a bunch, like 18, let me see, 25 1K resistors. Now we'll put the diodes on, and there are good, very clear diode symbols on the board, so there's no uncertainty about which way or where the black stripe, the cathode side, is supposed to be. You know, one thing that I did notice about this board as I was putting all the resistors on, and I didn't notice it when I went over the parts, and I should have. There's one, count them, just one 100 nanofarad cap on the board. There are no decoupling caps for either the microprocessor, microcontroller, or the op amps. And that's just interesting. I'm not getting these diodes very flat on the board because the holes are very far apart for these 4148s, and I'm not bending the leads right. But the electrons in a circuit like this won't care. So if they don't care, I don't care. Now we'll put the IC sockets on the board. Make sure the notches match. And they didn't. I put it on backwards. Now it's on correctly. Which is why when I am installing chips, I don't look at the notch on the socket. I look at the notch printed beneath it on the circuit board, because the socket can lie. Yeah, that's in there good. I'm going to tack one more down here because this is a long socket. It's just like in my rule when I'm writing software or looking at somebody else's code. Oh, look at that. Look at that. I went too far. I took the diode into the socket hole. That was silly. And I'll leave it in here because it's always good to recognize that you can make mistakes no matter how many things you've done. So I've lifted that up. Now let me get my solder sucker up, and we'll clear that hole. Now we'll do that diode in the correct hole. So that's always a good thing, because the electrons will care about that. solder that when I solder the sockets. But as I was saying, with the notches, the socket can be put in wrong. And it's just like when you're looking at somebody else's software, if you're maintaining an old piece of code or whatever, do not trust the comments. The code is the truth. The comments can very often lie. Same with the sockets. Trust the silk screening on the board, not the notch on the socket. Yes, 95% of the time they will be correct. Maybe even 99% of the time they'll be correct. But you'll be very sad when you hit the one time that they're not. Okay, I'll solder those all up, and this diode lead. There we go. And there are all the sockets. We're going to do the transistors. I'm looking to see where they all are, just to be sure. The 547s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Sounds like my water heater's coming on. Okay. No commentary while I put the transistors on. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, now I'm going to do the caps. Actually, I'm going to do the power header first. And it's notched. And there's a notch mark on the board. But just like with the notches, just double check that the keying works. And when you key it and put it in with the key the right way, the red stripe is in the right place. Okay, all the capacitors are on, the power connector's on, the sockets are on, everything is on. I'm going to go ahead and put the chips in now so I don't forget. And you say, how can you forget putting a chip in? Well, I have powered up a module with an op amp missing, and it wasn't working right. And I looked and said, oh, I forgot to put the chip in. Now we've got two, like I say, we've got two TL072s, and they're both CPs, and they're both Texas Instrument parts, so we'll just pick one and put the other one, like I said, in my spare op-amp box. That's all in. Now the next thing is we're going to put the male pin headers on, and they go like, oops, this is cockeyed. One of the pins looks a little bent. You may not be able to see it, but it's this pin right here. So I'm going to take this back out. Oh yeah, the pin bent right on under. I don't think I have any spare 084s. We do have spare 074s, which are functionally equivalent. It's just a different noise level on. There we go. That went in fine. Now we'll do the pin header. They go down like so. Let's make sure we can, oops, we can clip them in place. And they go skittering across the workbench, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and put this one in here too, with the extra pins just hanging out for, no, I'll take them out. Never mind. Never mind. Because if I don't, I'll just confuse myself at some point. Okay. Grab some more solder. Do one pin on each. Now we'll verify perpendicularity. That looks pretty perpendicular. This one does not. There we go. Well, let me get all these pins soldered. And that is the control board. I mean, whatever you call it, the logic board. I'll call it the logic board, just for lack of a better thing to call it. Let's see what they want, how they want to approach the controls. Anything interesting? They want us to do the tactile switches first, and they do not want us to push them through. Guess they won't fit through the panel if we push them through, so we just set them like so, and then as the thing says, do not push them all the way through, they should sit proud on the PCB. And we'll solder them from the top. Which is why we're doing it first. And I'm going to have to that's good. Isn't that good? That's good also. Now I can solder the rest of the pins. And once I solder the rest of the pins, I'm going to go back and do the ones I did first. Again, give them another dollop of, this got kind of cross-eyed. I didn't see that. Dang me. I gotta loosen this up. There we go. Now we're all good. Speaking of which, I'm going to drop the panel on just for a second to make sure, yeah, that worked fine. Make sure you put a good bit of solder on here on these legs, because I'll finish that after. Okay, there's those switches. Now I do all the resistors, did that. Now we do the transistors, did that. Now we'll get the pots on. And yeah, off camera I took all the I took off the panel nuts off. So these go up top. Now we'll put all the sockets on. I'm going to put the panel on to make sure all these are lined up well. Making sure the buttons work well. Now I'm going to do a couple of things here. I'm going to do one leg on this pot. And then down here I'm going to do one leg on opposite side jack. And they're going to stay in place. So I will put panel nut temporarily on this one. And a panel nut temporarily on this one. Make sure nothing will move. Now I'll solder all these connections up. Okay, now we'll take these panel nuts back off. And we're going to do the female pin headers, and we have to be a little careful here because when you do a female pin header, at least when I do a female pin header, I always lose one pin, and I don't have any spare space on this one. See there, I lost a pin. Male pin headers I don't, but female I do. There we go. We're all good. If you are actually buying spares for your workshop, if you do eurorack, buy a couple of feet of spare pin headers, male and female, typical eurorack size, which you can find from many parts lists, because pin headers are probably the thing you'll break the most of anything. I'm going to check the alignment here. Yeah, everything's going to be fine. So I'll go ahead and solder all these pins now. Pin headers are all on. Now the last bits, we'll push this switch in. They usually are pretty tight. Put the plastic handle knobs on, and the pin is bent. Now we'll drop the LEDs in. Put the panel back on again. And now we can. This will be permanent. Now the switches and the switch legs are thicker metal than almost anything else on the board, so you may have to keep your soldering iron on it a little bit longer to get them heated up correctly. And as you can see, I'm using the broadest part of my soldering iron to make contact with the switch leg, so I'm transferring the most heat. Looks good. Now we'll poke all the LEDs through their holes, and I'm going to have them protrude because they're round nose LEDs. They're not square. If they were square nose, I'd make them even with the front panel, but round ones I don't care. Round ones, I'm sorry, I care. I prefer them poking out a little bit. Just my own personal aesthetic. Okay, next we're going to be mounting everything. Putting everything finally together. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and put all the panel nuts on first. Never mind. Panel nuts are all on. Now we'll do the knobs. Make sure they're all the way counterclockwise. And again, be careful with these set screws because they're metal into plastic, so you can strip the plastic pretty easily if you're not careful. So don't gorilla it, just tighten, just snug them down. No offense to any gorillas building eurorack modules. Now, I'll put both together. We're going to assume it goes like this, even though there's no finished picture. Is there? There's no finished picture from the side, but that's okay. It should go in this way, shouldn't it? Went together just dandy. Now we'll put the cable in. And double checking that the red stripe is on the stripe on the circuit board. And it is. And there we go. There's the front. There's the side. The back. The other side, the top, and the bottom. So now we'll put it in the rack and give it a go. And we'll be singing our favorite song from The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway for this clock divider. See if you can figure out what I meant by that. Okay, so we're plugged in, and this is one time where I forgot to bring a mixer out from the main studio, so I was going to try and play two things at once, but I can't really. And I've only got two oscilloscope probes, so the top probe, the yellow line is at the top, that's the clock in. The magenta line at the bottom is coming out of division, the first division here. And I've got it plugged into my frequency central bass drum. So let's turn on my sequencer. And you can see on the scope that it's hitting I guess that's every other pulse. Now I'll change the divisions. I'm in gate mode, by the way. Now it fades out further. More divisions. That's way out now. It'll come up in a second. It'll beat in this a little bit. I think. There we go. Now while that's happening, at the same time the B clock is doing its thing, and they can be independent of each other, of course. That's going at clock rate. That's going at that very slow rate we've chosen. Oh, I'm not in out, that's why. So that's A, that's B, slow B down a little bit, D, and C. So that's the easy part to understand. Now we've got some presets here, as I turn this, that changes all the dividers. So they're now all on the same rate again, and then I can change it again. Let me get this. And there's some variability in there. There's a whole lot to do here. The mode setting sets counting up, counting down, up, down, 4, all kinds of things like that. I'm going to go to the cues now. Cues are a little different. So as you can see in cues, the pulse is the exact same width as the clock coming in. So even though we can change the division, the clock pulse sent out from the divider is the same as the clock in from this sequencer. I'm going to speed the sequencer up a little bit. Now we're going to change modes. That's one of the presets. In cue mode, I'm going to go back to gate mode for a little bit. Slow that down a little bit. Wow, that's staying high a long time. I did not know it'd stay that high that long. But that's certainly interesting. I'm going to do something else here just for a second. I'm going to take the sound output, go over to my even VCO, put the, I'm dropping cables all over the place. I'm going to take the even VCO into my VCA, more VCA, and now I'm going to use the gate signal here to trigger it, and we're going to go with that long, because that should hold the note long. Now it's changing note volume because, note value because I've got the sequencer running still. And I don't have this plugged in where I want it to be. Yeah, I do. So you can't see the magenta line anymore, of course, because I'm an idiot and didn't actually use the, what am I trying to say? I'm not actually using my multi like I should. Go in here and take this from here to here and put this into the VCA, and then take this and put it over here, which I could have done in a more logical. So see, it's being held high, which is keeping the VCA open, and the notes are changing because the sequencer is rolling through a couple of notes. So let's take this, change the preset. I'm going to take this to match clock almost. Now that's the direct output that you would expect from the sequencer. I'm going to Try some different presets. I'm going to switch over to Q mode again. And you can hit reset or clock at any time to set your clock back to what you want it to be. I'm going to take the preset CV, and let me see where I got a cable. I'm going to go for my LFO with a pulse wave. And I'm going to go to preset CVN. See if that does anything that I can discern. I'm going to slow the sequencer down a little bit. I'm going to go back to gate mode. I set that way high again. Let me come back in. So you can see basically what it does. There's a lot more that this can do. There's pages of stuff about how gate and, how preset mode and gate and Q work. So I'm changing the LFO that I put into preset CV. Go back to Q. So that's what it does. It's a good divider, and again, I'm doing a lot of messing about here. But that's what it does. It's a good divider. It's got 4 divisions coming out of it. So if I go back to the, where am I? If I go back to the bass drum, and we're still coming in from nowhere, we're coming in from that now. Where am I? I'm going to take this gate now. So as you can see, we've got lots we can do with this. I mean, obviously, if you want to just match, you can match, but then you want to add, say, a tom on every other note, you can do that. Let's speed the sequencer way up. And I'm going to take this all the way down to 1:1. So the bottom line is, clocks are kind of hard to demo except on the scope, and I think I'm going to go buy a 4-channel scope, because this really doesn't do this unit justice, because you're not seeing that all 4 clocks are different and they're being affected by the preset knob and the mode knob, both in cue and gate. So you can see basically what it does, but I would have to read like 5 or 6 pages of description to tell you exactly what cues, gates, and the various traces you can get out of them are. So if you're interested in this, as you can see, it's a pretty straightforward build. There was no particular hard mechanical or soldering connections. Went together pretty quickly, and it does what it does. It takes the clock signal and divides it various ways. And yeah, if you want to go through a bunch of pages of waveforms and description of what's going on, I would encourage you to do that before you bought it, because then you'll know how powerful this unit is. But another good module from Frequency Central, and I hope you enjoyed the video.